most of you, either at Columbia or City College, are in programs that are preparing you to go out in the world and do this work, and do this climate justice work. And some of it is going to be activism with a capital A. I know we act as here veterans, heroes of climate justice in Upper Manhattan and in New York City. But a lot of the work that's really necessary happens because people who've been educated in this work go out and do stuff that maybe doesn't even get noticed.
And we want the university to invest in relationships that put the community first, where the university is a co-partner on a grant, but the community group gets most of the money. The university can take massive overheads.
Environmental justice means to me that communities are empowered to hold corporations and state accountable for the pollution that they cause and to address climate change. And how that's embedded in the work that I do at LMQ is, first is that we try to stay aware of capitalistic practices that affect the well-being of our community. And that means it's recognizing the capitalistic thinking and then decolonizing them. We bring in indigenous values into our work, like the concept of bayanihan, which is actually in the name of our group. And that means community, camaraderie, solidarity. Instead of acting individualistically, we focus on working together as a collective. In the Philippine community, in the Philippines, we are no strangers to navigating authoritarian systems. But, we've always found creative, non-traditional ways to keep doing the work. Arts allows us to bring in researchers, students, activists, and neighbors to come together. Arts provides us a space for folks to really connect and understand what's really happening on the ground.
But I think a lot of students who end up putting a lot of time have personal experiences, either from a community that's impacted, you have family in a community that's impacted, you have personally felt repressed for your speech, you have personally felt the negative impacts of climate change. And I think just sharing those stories and people kind of realizing that, hey, this could happen to me, this could happen to my friends, and just kind of building that empathy, people kind of start to show up. And I think you can build a really great community of people, and I think I've definitely felt that where, these are all my friends, we're all in this struggle together. And so despite how bad it gets, there is a really strong support network. And I think people, or at least college students, really want that support network. I mean, you want people behind you that will support you academically, socially, if you're organizing, whatever. So if you can build those networks through activism, I think it's a really strong incentive for people to stay involved.
Students, just because have so much energy and you want to do something, a lot of times students just don't know what can be done. And so one thing that I like to remind a lot of students that I work with is that you don't have to be experts to advocate for this stuff. You don't have to be a technical expert. You just have to know that you support it and that these things are good and that they impact you. Offshore wind, it might sound technical, and many times it can be, but at the end of the day, what it means is clean air, amazing job opportunities, environmental and economic justice. It also means environmental and energy security, which is something that I think both sides of the aisle can agree on right now in terms of policy. So when you frame it like that, and you frame it also considering all the environmental justice considerations as well, it's a really straightforward thing to know, hey, this is something we should support. This is something that we should be pushing for, collectively using our voices to to support.
So we really try to keep things intergenerational. We make sure that what we do we feel welcoming and relevant to people. And most of all, we try to make our works fun, engaging, and beautiful.
The way I keep going, especially on those days, is to lean on my coworkers, lean on my colleagues who I know are like-minded and feel the same way, and we're all in the same boat. And we're all trying to move the needle just a little bit further. So anytime things get discouraging, to be able to powwow with them and work together and share resources, learn from one another, it always is refreshing for those conversations.
The more I have to organize, the more time I've been to organizing, I think the less anxiety and stress I've felt about the climate crisis.
To me, the choice is not complicated. Doing something about climate change outweighs the cost of not doing anything at all. And so that is what keeps me fighting for change.
We feel like we're in the legacy of that, but it's I think really important to take a step back and say, what is our strategy? Who are our targets? What is the most effective thing to do and when? And try to get as many people in the room together and as much collective knowledge as possible.
When you do this work, try not to think of something that's easy or glamorous. So try to do on the unglamorous stuff. Whatever that means to you, do it.
I think the biggest mistake that I see a lot of student organizers make is trying to be like everywhere, anywhere, all at once. Try to do everything all at once. And a lot of students end up getting burnt out. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. A lot of these projects especially for clean energy, it takes decades long for these projects to come to fruition. And political landscapes are consistently changing and evolving. And so remind yourself that you're just one person. Lean on other groups who are doing similar work, form coalitions, form allies, resource share. Maybe you can be at an event one day and then an event in 4 other events that week. See if your partners can attend some. Divide and conquer.
So this is one of the exercises that we do on our projects. We do a lot of community engagements. You probably heard of power mapping. If you know, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, that it's like drawing a map where that shows who has influence or control over an issue that you care about and how to reach them. Power mapping, there's plenty of resources online. It's an exercise that's been around since forever. It can work in any context.
Great, thank you so much, Justin, and our panelists again.
One of the things that I do love is our connection with university students, whether it's City College or Columbia. We've had great experiences with interns.
Really, the way in which we build long-term sustainability for a movement for climate justice, for any movement at that, is you can't stop organizing, and being involved with your community is something that should absolutely be a lifelong endeavor. And it starts often when students are in college, joining different organizations, but it doesn't have to stop when you exit. Join your local community organizations, and throughout the rest of your life, organize with your peers in your neighborhood.
Well, to me, I think people are always going to find what we're talking about important. This is people that we're talking about in frontline communities, right? They bear some of the worst, pollution, and people are always going to try to fight for change, whether this one project that I was a part of in undergrad, I'm no longer doing it, but I was looking at air pollution caused by JFK Airport, and even though I'm no longer doing it, other people have picked it up People are always going to fight for change, when it comes to environment, and especially for frontline communities, they're going to continue to bear some of the worst burdens.
Thank you. No, that's really helpful. Certainly as part of the planning process and some of the engagement we want to lead, we are really passionate about sharing this tool and hoping that these use cases continue to expand. When I had this conversation earlier this morning with one of our board members, she flagged some of the data sets that she felt like might be missing. She mentioned that the air cargo warehouses aren't really considered a last mile facility, so we don't have those mapped. And I think I'm just thinking about if she didn't know me personally, how would I have been able to actually get that feedback? So now I have a follow-up item. I'm gonna do what I can to see what data sets exist, whether this is a research gap that we want to address in the plan. So I think, to answer your question, through this planning and through this engagement process, we want to solicit that kind of feedback, and we want to know what kind of improvements can be made in terms of the actual mapping tool itself to try and validate some of these data layers, and allow for people to propose new data sets, new information that we should be incorporating, because we're really not sure that we're presenting the whole picture, and it's kind of an evolving thing.
For me, in these tumultuous times, my kind of path forward is sort of twofold, and I think the first thing is what was mentioned, which is we all should definitely be turning towards local projects, not in lieu of our larger research projects or our previous work, but the onus is on us to kind of turn towards local projects that potentially require less capital, community organizing. It seems small, but things like gardening, for example, and planting trees with community members are still acts of climate resistance and climate resilience. But definitely, I also think the focus on local and state level politics are really, really important. And I wouldn't downplay the importance of the election in 2 years, right? And I think there's a lot of work to be done on the local and the state level in preparation for that. And yeah, we should definitely be leaning into our communities heavily. And I think the second part, which is very intimately tied to the first prong, is we need to sort of rid ourselves of this kind of doomist sentiment. I don't know how else better to put it, that afflicts scarily even young people my age these days, right? The climate crisis did not start with Donald Trump. We were seeing those same alarm bells during Biden, during Obama, for decades now. And so this is inherently a long-term issue that requires organizing and steadfast focus, and we can't let ourselves wallow kind of in the sorrows of how difficult things might be, but instead point to where we can pick up the pieces, where we can be doing projects. So yeah, we must be optimistic in these times.